Over the past 7 years, I've been obsessed with roller coasters. I didn't truly get into them until I started my summer job at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. Although I've since left that job, my love for roller coasters has only grown over the years. It may seem that I've been on a lot of roller coasters, but I still have a long list of noteworthy coasters that I want to go on. With that being said, my name is Avery, and this is my bucket list of the top 20 coasters in North America here on United Coasters. I'll be ranking my list based on my anticipation, as number 1 is a high chance that I'll make the trip there, and number 20 is a low chance that I could see the trip ever happening anytime soon. Before we start, I have to clarify some things. Just because a coaster is ranked low on this list does not mean that it's an extremely low priority for me. This is the top 20, so all these parks are on my radar. Also, this list will contain currently open rides in North America only. That's because I have plans to make an international list and a list for future coasters later. Starting with number 20, we have Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland. This B&M hypercoaster creates a major centerpiece for this park. Despite the appeal, which looks great with the skyline, the main reason that I want to ride this coaster is because of the turns that this ride has. When going on these turns, it looks like you're about to go completely upside down. That type of feeling is rare on a coaster like this. The only reason this coaster is ranked so low on my list is because I don't see myself going to this park anytime soon. That doesn't mean that if the opportunity happened, I wouldn't be the first in line on Leviathan. Name another ride that gives an actual thrill in the pre-lift section, then goes up a lit hill to then drop down a tunnel that travels completely under the parking lot of the park. No ride that I know does this except for Hades 360. This coaster is not for the faint of heart, especially because of the tunnels that are in complete darkness. Another reason that I love to ride this coaster is because of the secluded wooded feeling that it gives off. And since this coaster is a hybrid between wood and steel, it can invert, and does so with a corkscrew out of the first tunnel. If I'm ever in Wisconsin, this ride will be at the top of my list. This is a one-of-a-kind roller coaster in Utah that starts with the elevator lids out of a tower and a 116-degree beyond vertical drop. On top of those eye-grabbing feats, the layout also features a never-before-seen element called a Lagoon roll. The reason that it's called that is because the roller coaster was created by the park Lagoon itself. This is definitely a must ride for me, and I'm also kind of jealous of people who call this place their home park. By now, Rocky Mountain Construction, or RMC, has made a name for themselves by converting old wooden roller coasters into superior hybrid coasters. But have you heard of the one with the launched lift hill? If not, let me introduce you to Lightning Rod at Dollywood. After going up a boosted hill, the ride then uses the terrain to give an amazing ride in the forest. The part that really excites me on this ride is the quad down. This is a set of 4 dips near the end of the ride that is so mesmerizing to look at. After that, the ride has to slow down, so it travels upward into the brake run, giving off this unreal look as it does so. I know that this ride lost its original acceleration after its refurbishment, but it doesn't stop me from wanting to go on this sometime. Alpenguys brings almost every other B&M invert I've ridden to shame. Except for maybe Montu, but I have to compare the two when I go on this beautiful ride. I love the picturesque first drop and the theming in general. This coaster is long and it has some jaw-dropping elements that are only exaggerated due to the long layout. I love the theming of the snow on this ride and the trenches that are throughout the course of the ride. Not to be confused with Lightning Rod, Lightning Run is a prototype Hyper GTX made by Chance Rides. Besides the awesome electric blue color, the main reason that I have this ride on the list is partially because this ride needs more recognition, and partially because this ride is all about airtime in such a small footprint. As of recording, this is the only Hyper GTX in existence, with another one on its way to Adventureland with an entirely different layout. I know that the POVs and off-rides footage can only show so much, but that gives you more of a reason to go out here and ride this amazing coaster. There are tons of roller coasters that sport the name Superman, but only one of these has a beautiful backdrop of Mexico City for the ride, and this is Superman El Ultimo Escapo at Six Flags Mexico. This Morgan hypercoaster has exaggerated turns and drops that give you a sense of speed and power as it travels throughout the course. This ride looks to offer some graceful moments of ejected airtime as it takes that final trek to the brake run. I also like how it stands out against the park as one of the biggest rides in the skyline. The park in general is reason enough to go here, but Superman El Ultimo Escapo is a major pulley factor for me. We leave one Morgan hyper to talk about another one at West Mifflin, Pittsburgh, called Phantom's Revenge. Converted from a looping coaster called Steel Phantom, Phantom's Revenge trades the inversions for a crazy amount of airtime, and due to the layout of the ride, the first drop is minuscule in comparison to the second drop that goes underneath another roller coaster at the park. In my opinion, I believe that the POV doesn't do this coaster any justice for the amount of forces this ride looks to give out. The park Kennywood has always left me intrigued, but I know I want to go on Phantom's Revenge someday soon. If you want the most insane spinning coaster that goes upside down, has a 90-degree vertical drop, and 2 launches, then you have to go to Branson, Missouri to ride Time Traveler. This Mock Ride's Extreme Spinner is only one of 2 in the world. I need to ride this to see how it feels to do a corkscrew and launch going sideways. I never thought I would get to say that about a roller coaster, but I did, and I need to ride this for that experience alone. And since this ride's vehicle spins freely, every experience is different, and I cannot wait to ride this coaster. We move from one extreme coaster to one that looks like it's trying to hurt you. I'm just kidding, but not by that much, because Intimidator 305 had to get its first drop reprofiled with a trim brake to slow its descent. But before the drop, let's talk about that lift. This uses a cable lift hill that allows a faster climb to the top instead of a conventional lift hill. Due to that, instead of the slow iconic rise to the top before the initial drop, it flings you over that drop, and then you instantly go into a turn that looks to give out some crushing G-forces. The part that always has me hypnotized on this ride is when I see it whip riders by quickly changing directions. I need to experience this intimate Giga Coaster for myself just to see if the stories are true about the thrills on this ride. And now we're heading into the top 10, starting with X2. Upon my first time seeing this fourth dimensional roller coaster by Aerodynamics, I knew that I had to go to California to ride it. This ride is the very definition of extreme. You start by going up a lift hill looking away from the ride, only to then flip into a position to look straight down as you descend that 215-foot drop. This ride has pyrotechnics and crazy inversions. What makes this ride unique compared to a conventional SNS 4D free spin model is that X2 uses controlled flips that are already been programmed on the ride. That means that every ride has been curated and calculated to give out the most thrill for every rider. I also love that early 2000s pro skater aesthetic this coaster gives off. All in all, I really want to go here, as this isn't my only ride at Six Flags Magic Mountain I have on my list. You'll just have to keep watching to see where the other one is. It still baffles me that a park themed to chocolate has a ride like this, but this Intamin wing coaster creates an elite ride at a remarkable park. This hypercoaster has a unique layout that gives a pop of airtime on the initial descent due to the profiling of this ride. And because of that awesome cable lift hill, you are pulled over that first drop with some speed. I love watching POVs and off-ride footage of this coaster gliding over the water, and I want to go on a wing seat to have nothing underneath me as I go on this ride. I know that some people will say that this ride is a little rough, but that still won't deter me from going on this ride. This Intamin prefabricated roller coaster may look tame by the POV, but this ride has been said to offer an amazing first drop and fast speed throughout the ride. This ride is so beloved that it's debated to outshine the ride King Ka in the same park, and that's the tallest coaster in the world. Aside from that, El Toro offers some unreal airtime for a wooden coaster and some crushing laterals towards the end. There's a reason that this ride is where it is on the list. This is the first time on the list that we'll get to the coaster capital of the world at Sandusky, Ohio to talk about Maverick. This Intamin multi-launch coaster reminds me of Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens, but with the thrill turned up to 11. Let's talk about that initial launch that mimics a lift hill. Due to it accelerating on an incline, I don't think that you would get a full experience of speed until you take that drop. And that drop is 100 feet at an angle of 95 degrees. You then navigate a course of twists and turns that looks to give out strong forces as it goes throughout the course. After that, you line yourself up with this tunnel. And that tunnel boosts the speed of Maverick's train to go 70 miles per hour as it launches you out and left of the tunnel going to the end of the course. Although this coaster is smaller compared to the ones surrounding it, it still looks like a beast and one of the ones I have to go on in the future. When you think of an epic coaster, you wouldn't think of a wooden coaster, right? Well, let me introduce you to Voyage at Holiday World. This Gravity Group creation was the second roller coaster that they created, with the first one being Hades at Mount Olympus. It's amazing how the manufacturer can go from that to the second largest wooden roller coaster in the world. Voyage has over 6,000 feet of track, and it looks to give out a long ride that goes into the forest. To be honest, I'm a sucker for coasters that use terrain either for their scenery or elevation change. Either way, Voyage sports over 20 seconds of airtime and awesome speeds for a wooden coaster that only has one lift hill. I would love for a chance to go on this coaster, especially at night. Getting into my top 5 bucket list roller coasters, we go from the second longest wooden roller coaster to the world's tallest roller coaster with a lift hill. This is Fury 325 at Carowinds. Loosely resembling a Hornet, this B&M Giga Coaster reaches a top speed of 95 miles per hour and has a unique element for a turnaround called a treble clef. With a drop of 320 feet, I feel this coaster will probably be one of my favorite coasters. There's a reason that this starts my top 5. Okay, I know what you're thinking. To all my coaster enthusiasts, you may be wondering why the greatest coaster created is only number 4 on my list. But let me remind you that this is my bucket list and my opinions, and they're for coasters, not for parks. Also, Still Vengeance came out in 2018, so I think that the hype has fallen a little bit and given rise to new coasters to be the greatest now. Despite all that, I still want to ride the best of what RMC has to offer with this ride. The off-axis airtime hills and sense of speed is only the start of why I want to go on this ride. Ever since I've heard of Cedar Point, I knew that this is the ultimate destination park, and the presence of this roller coaster being here creates a tremendously strong pulling factor for me. If only I lived closer. Iron Guazi is the newest currently operating RMC roller coaster, and one I narrowly rode when I went to Busch Gardens Tampa last year. I only missed this ride's opening by a month, and I feel kinda cheated that I was so close to riding this behemoth of a ride. I need to go back to Florida and experience that first drop, the insane 0G stall, and that legendary death roll. Because this ride doesn't have a mid-course brake run, Iron Guazi is non-stop from that first drop. Even though the ride time is considerably less than the length of Steel Vengeance, the general consensus that I gather from enthusiasts online is that it doesn't need it. So just you wait, Iron Guazi, I'll be back for you. Velocicoaster is one of the best rides at Universal, and arguably one of the best rides in the world. And this intimate creation feels like something that I would make off a Planet Coaster. If I were to only talk about the ride in general, I would be doing an injustice to this masterpiece. The queue line is full of pre-shows, animatronics of lifelike velociraptors, and it doesn't stop there as the theming goes throughout the ride itself. The parts that make me want to go on this ride is that second launch to that 155-foot top hat and the Mosasaurus roll over the water before the final brakes. This ride is unbelievably cool, and I consider it a no-brainer to ride at this park. Finally, the reason why this ride is my number one is because of an element that can only be done on these types of coasters. My number one bucket list coaster is Tatsu, a B&M flying coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain. A flying coaster gives riders a true sense of freedom with the illusion of having nothing supporting the rider due to the harness not obstructing their view, and the track that's been placed above them. And that elusive element I mentioned is called a pretzel loop. The reason why I love this element is because it's as forceful as it is graceful to look at. To be honest, who doesn't want to fly around the air? And I've only experienced this once with Manta at SeaWorld Orlando, and as soon as I felt the G-forces on my back due to that inversion, I fell in love with this element. Although Tatsu isn't the only flying coaster in the US, it is the tallest and longest one of its kind. I'm so glad this didn't get the DC name treatment either, as it makes it unique from all the other Superman flying clones at other Six Flags parks. Out of all the coasters on this list, this is the one that I am most obsessed with, and if I got to go on this one and visit the park in general, I would be content. Until some new ride comes out. What can I say, I'm addicted to coasters. If you found something interesting or just enjoyed what I had to say, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'm on the hunt for 1,000 subscribers, and I do appreciate everyone who supports this channel. Also, if you've ridden these coasters and got some more input into them, let me know in the comments. Lastly, thank you for watching, and remember to stay united.